Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining my channel once again. Remember, Chess Audiobooks is on leechess.com, chess.com, Instagram, Twitter, Pinterest. So please follow me on those platforms and please hit the thumbs up button and please consider subscribing to the channel. Today we're just doing a recap of one game between Mamedyarov with the white pieces and Leinier Dominguez with the black pieces. This is from the Superbet chess tournament that is going on right now. This is round 8, and let's get right into it. D4 by Shaq, D5 by Dominguez, C4. So we have a Queen's Gambit accepted variation, Knight of 3, Knight of 6, E3, E6, Bishop takes C4. This is known this is not known for being the most combative variation to play as the black pieces. Very high amount of draws. Castle, C5, B3, but nevertheless very solid opening to play as black, and easy to play. On top of that, I think it's very easy to learn. Anand was a great exponent of the Queen's Gambit accepted in his younger days, and I believe Kramnik also, but I know Anand played it a lot more than Kramnik did. Bishop E2, Knight BD7, Bishop B2, Bishop B7, Knight BD2, Bishop E7, A4. I think the Queen's Gambit accepted got a bad reputation very long time ago because of black tried too much to gain too much out of the opening, accepting the pawn, trying to hold on to the pawn right before the positional knowledge was accumulated enough in chess circles where black realized, hey, every pawn is not meant to be kept. Sometimes you gotta let it go and develop your pieces. So I think early on the Queen's Gambit accepted had like a kind of dubious reputation on the account of the players with the black pieces being a little bit too greedy. Nowadays it's a solid weapon, but you can see due to the symmetrical nature of the position, you can see why there will be a lot of draws. Knight E5, C takes D4, rooks come off, Queen takes C8, knights come off, and it looks like we're just headed for the old-fashioned draw. But since I'm going over this game, it doesn't end like that. Castles. At this point, let's just call it what it is equal. Dead equal right here. Some pretty much symmetrical position. Two bishops. There's only one open file. That's the C file, so pieces can be rapidly exchanged off. All right. Of course, white wants to try to gain some initiative, play E4, E5, etc. But black has moves too. All right. And plus, black has more space on the queen side. So here's here's white trying to gain the initiative. Bishop F6. Knight C4. Okay. Just minor tactics that black has to be on the lookout for. Queen C7. Rook D1. And now Bishop D5. Bishops come off. Knight takes F6 and now F3 with this idea, of course, of advancing E4. What else are you going to do as white in the position, right? Knight D7, E4, Bishop takes C4. So now you have this knight versus bishop ending. Bishop takes C4, A5, and now Queen D4. So white has done basically the best he can in this position. Actually, the knight is worse than his bishop here because of the lack of outpost opportunities. I mean, there's one on C3, but it's very difficult for black to get his knight to that square. All right, but other than that, there's really not too much for white to do here as far as attacking black. He has his pieces placed in the most optimal positions that he can, and it's just that black's position is just rock solid. So Knight E5, of course, wanting to trade the knight bishop. Bishop goes to E2. So now the bishop is, let's say it's a little worse than it was before, right? It's behind these pawns, not really doing anything. H6, creating some room for the king. G3, again, we're still equal. Idea is to play F4, kicking the knight out. So Dominguez plays G5. H5 could have been played, but that entails a piece sacrifice. And if Black wanted to try to play real dynamically, give up the piece for some pawns, he could have. But you playing this kind of opening, and you get to this position, probably the last thing on your mind is sacrificing the piece for some pawns. But I'll just show you the variation real quick. So F4, knight G4. There's an outpost, H3, kicking the knight out again, and now Queen C2. The idea is, of course, attacking the bishop again, and attacking the pawn to boot on B3. So Queen D3, right? If Rook D2 here, then just simply Queen takes B3, and H takes G4. There's your piece sack. Queen takes G3 check, King H1, and H takes G4. All right? So it's a little double edge there. Playable. I guess if you really needed to win, right, money's on the line, you play a line like that. Instead of Rook D2, just Queen D3 here. And then the game could end in the draw after H5. So H5 is possible. Just wanted to show you that. So G5 instead. Queen E3. Again, with the idea of F4. Rook C8. F4, G takes, and again, driving the knight away. But at least the knight is moving with the threat. And the threat is to F4. So F5, E takes F5, E takes F5. Knight hops back into F4. So this knight is doing a good job in spite of the fact that there's no outpost for the knight. The queen is literally, the queen on C7 is literally the outpost for the knight. Bishop goes back to its former glory on C4, and also, besides pressuring the F7 pawn, blocks the action of the queen and rook on the C file. King H7, and now Queen F3, and Rook G8. All right, open files, King H1, H5, and so now with the game open up, you can see that there's some danger in the position now. Of course, the idea behind H5, one of the ideas rather, is play the move Rook G4, and of course it gains some more room for the king also. H3 from Shaq, and that of course prevents the rook from coming to G4. So the rook goes to G5. You can see there's an attack on this F pawn here. Rook F1 with the double attack on the knight. Again, the knight is always being harassed due to the lack of outpost possibilities. I just wanted to show you this move right here. If Black played Rook takes F5, of course that would be a terrible blunder because the bishop would just skewer the rook here on F5. So after Rook F1, the knight moved to G2. Again, it's amazing how these pieces are providing the outpost for the knight, so to speak. Knight G2, Queen E4. So you see some discovery ideas with F5. Simply Rook G3 here. Another slick move that's possible for Black is Knight H4. With the idea being, if Queen takes H4, then Queen C6. Of course, that is winning. And so you can see the problem here now for both sides is the exposed king. Who would have thought maybe 10, 15 moves ago that both kings would be exposed like this, and that all these files would be open? Remember, we were just talking about the open C file. Now you have a bunch of open files, and both kings are exposed. So now, although the position is equal, it's risky, right? One mistake, get checkmated, perhaps lose some material. Rook F3, Rook F3. And now we trade off some more. You see the knight hopping around. Queen E4. King G7. And I want to say it's kind of rare that you see the knight without an outpost, especially with heavy pieces on the board, being able to have this much mobility and freedom in the position. Queen D4, F6, And now queen G1 here. King H6. And queen G8. I mean, it's hard to blame Shaq for playing this move. I mean, looks like he'll soon be able to create some mating threats against the queen. And as a matter of fact, his idea behind this move is to play H4, right? It keeps the king from being able to escape via G5, and then start harassing queen H8 check. And this would actually win the game if white had extra move, if he could get this move H4 in. So that's his idea. However, black gets to move first, and he played this move queen E5, and Shaq resigned, right? And it all just comes down to king exposure. I'll try to show some variation here. First of all, he's attacking the white pawns, and it's really hard to deal with the threat of queen E1. So, for instance, queen G1, then just queen takes F5. And you can see H3 is also hanging. Let's say queen F8 check. He starts checking. King G5, queen G7, again, king H4, and the king has made it to safety. And so now it's black's turn to start attacking. So bishop F1, say to guard against the E1 threat from the queen. So queen C3, king H2, because the pawn in H3 is threatened. And then just knight takes H3. So basically, Shaq's maneuver, queen G8, kind of took the queen out of position and left the king totally exposed. Although it looks like black's king is just as exposed, black's king actually has an escape, whereas the white king really doesn't have an escape. And the white side is actually going to start losing material. All right, and white will not have a perpetual here. So queen G8 was the main blunder, if you want to say, in the position. Perhaps going back a little earlier, instead of queen E4 here, maybe just sticking around the king with a move like queen G3, a little bit better. Of course, it's counterintuitive, right, to come actually move the king, the queen off of that long diagonal, right, and leave your king exposed to a check here. But queen G3, let's say queen C6, for example, king H2, queen D6, and you can see that, and bishop takes F7, of course, you can see that the king is protected still. All right. So another loss for Mamedyarov. Another great game by Dominguez. I mean, he's been playing some great chess. Even though he had made that critical blunder, even up until he had made that blunder in his last game that he lost, I mean, he was playing excellent. In the round before that, excellent chess. So just another solid game from start to finish from Dominguez. I'm really enjoying his play of this tournament. So that will be it for this video. We'll be looking at the last round coming up on the next video. Once again, please hit the thumbs up. Please consider subscribing and check the links below. Consider donating and supporting the channel. And also, there's always some goodies in the links below, whether they be DVDs or books that are always related to the subject matter. So today we were talking about Queen's Gambit Accepted. So there'll be a couple of DVDs or books that you might be interested in if you're interested in pursuing more knowledge on that particular variation. So with that, I will see you guys on the next video.